Well, good afternoon, church family. It is good to be able to share just God's word with you today. I've really been encouraged recently from Psalm 24. As you know, this Sunday is Palm Sunday. And so on Palm Sunday, we take time to reflect on Jesus's entry into Jerusalem and his own recognition of his kingship in that moment. And he is doing that on the precedent of the Old Testament. And so this Sunday, we're going to be looking a little more closely at Psalm 24, what Psalm 24 tells us about this true king, this king of glory that Israel anticipated, this king of glory that could only be fulfilled ultimately by the person of Christ. And so what I want to do is give you a little preview of where we're going to go on Sunday morning by looking at Psalm 24 together and reflecting on just the encouragement, the hope that we find in this. Psalm 24 says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and all those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false, and does not swear deceitfully. He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." Who is this King of glory? The Lord, the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O gates, and lift them up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. One of the reasons I love this psalm, and especially its application for the situation we find ourselves in, is it starts off right off the bat reminding us who's in control. Charles Spurgeon, in reflecting on this psalm, says that this psalm shows us the glory of the true king, the creator. It shows us the true Israel, the people who belong to him. And it shows us the true Redeemer, the King of glory who lays down his life for his people. But it begins with a reflection of the true God, the true creator. It says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof." Everything that's happening in the world right now is happening in God's world. It's a world where he is in control, where he wields sovereign power. There's nothing that is happening right now with the coronavirus that is outside of God's sovereign control. And not only the world itself, but the people therein. It says, "For he is, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein." All of us belong to God. We're all under his sovereign hand, and so is this world and all the circumstances we find ourselves in. The psalm then goes on to ask this question, most pressing question: who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? And it answers by saying, "He who has clean hands and a pure heart." And that immediately leads us to ask, well, who is that? Who fits that description? I can't think of a time in my life when I have had cleaner hands physically. Like, I'm washing my hands all the time right now, many, many times a day. I'm counting to 20 every time I wash them. My hands are cleaner than they've ever been. And yet, when I read what Psalm 24 tells us, the kind of clean hands that we are called to have to ascend to the hill of the Lord, I realize my hands are filthy. I don't even come close. Who has clean hands? Who has a pure heart? Ultimately, it tells us only this King of glory, who is entering into God's holy city, is the one who has clean hands and a pure heart. Jesus, our Redeemer King, comes as the one who is innocent, who is pure, who is righteous. And by virtue of his clean hands, by virtue of his pure heart, we are made righteous. We're declared righteous in God's presence. We're counted as righteous. And so in this time where we are thinking about physical hygiene and the importance of that, the importance of maintaining cleanliness and removing bacteria, it does point us to a greater need that we have, a cleansing that we cannot perform for ourselves, a cleansing that could only be done for us by Christ, our Redeemer. And he has done that by living a perfect life, a sinless life, and dying an atoning death in our place and rising again. And he is now ascended to the right hand of the Father, where he makes continual intercession for us. He's pleading his blood and righteousness on your behalf and on mine, for all those whose faith and trust are in Christ. But not only is he a Redeemer, he is also a king. And he's a king who will one day restore all things. Everything that is wrong will be made untrue. Everything that is broken will be put right. And we read of this king in verse 7 and beyond. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Friends, right now, we need to know that our God is not just a merciful God, not just a gracious God. We need to know that he is a God who is mighty to save, who is strong and mighty in battle, a God who is able to conquer all of our enemies. He is in control of all that is happening right now. He is the God who has vowed to fight on behalf of his people. He is the God who has vowed to declare all that he has promised on our behalf. And he is mighty to do all that he has promised. His hand is not shortened. He's not caught off guard by what's happening. He is strong and mighty. He is mighty in battle. And this King of glory, who in his earthly life and ministry entered into Jerusalem so that he could ascend to the hill of the Lord and lay down his clean hands and pure heart on the cross for our sake and take the stain and the guilt of our sin, he will one day return to ascend to Mount Zion, and his reign will be the beginning of a new heavens and new earth, where God's heavenly city will be joined to this earthly existence that we have. This earth will be remade. All disease will be removed. All sin will be removed. Every tear will be wiped away. All grief will be gone. The King of glory will reign in power. And he will reign for our sake. And because we're united to him by faith, we get the privilege of reigning with him. Even though we don't have clean hands, we don't have pure hearts in and of ourselves, in Christ we've been made clean. We've been given new hearts. And in union with him, not only are we enabled to ascend to the hill of the Lord, but we are also going to one day be invited to reign with him as his vice regents. Simply amazing when we think about what Christ has done and accomplished on our behalf. And I think it's so important in the midst of these very uncertain times in which we live to know that there is a King of glory on the throne, that he is strong and mighty, that he's mighty in battle, that he will defeat all of our enemies, and he has already defeated our greatest enemy, sin and death, through his cross and resurrection. And so I hope that that's an encouragement to you as you go throughout this week, as we approach Palm Sunday. I know that it's not going to be the same as usual. We're not going to be together physically as we would like to, and yet we still gather to worship the same King, and that King is in control, and he unites us to one another, even as we gather in our own homes to worship this Sunday. Pray that that's an encouragement to you, and that you will be blessed and encouraged throughout this week. Again, please reach out with needs that you have. I've so enjoyed talking to folks on the phone and connecting through Zoom prayer. Please hop onto our Zoom prayer tomorrow night, 6:30. Would love to see your face. Would love the opportunity to pray with you. Until then, we'll see you later. And again, thanks for tuning in.